The room was silent. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Meri Brown as she stood, her tone pointed, her proof indisputable. For years, Sister Wives fans had witnessed her being pushed aside, overlooked and muted. But today, in a trial atmosphere that was charged with tension, Meri flipped the script and shredded Robyn Brown with evidence of $480,000 in email falsehoods. The judge, clearly shocked, had trouble concealing dismay as the truth came to light, and in the courtroom, fans exploded with one word on their lips: karma. This wasn't another family feud. It was the moment all Sister Wives fans had been waiting for. The battle lines were drawn, and Meri was finally striking back. To get a sense of why this courtroom drama is so important, we have to go back. The Brown family's narrative has always been one of togetherness, at least the perception of it. On Sister Wives, Kody Brown peddled the promise of a large, plural family founded on love, trust, and faith. But behind the scenes, the fissures were deep. Wives Christine and Janelle eventually gained their independence, leaving Kody behind. But Meri? She hung around, always the first wife, but always left behind. Her marriage to Kody had broken down to an all-time low, and fans cried for her for holding on. And then Robyn, the fourth wife. The woman that many fans believed was the cause of the family's downfall. Kody openly favored her, relocated his life to her residence, and prioritized her children. All decisions appeared to be favorable to Robyn, with the other wives being pushed to the side. So when rumors erupted of financial mismanagement, backroom deals, and covert property transfers, it wasn't surprising fans that Robyn was at the heart of it all. What nobody anticipated, though, was that Meri would be the one to reveal it. The air within the courtroom was electric. Individuals shifted around in their seats, murmuring under their breaths, anticipating the drama that was about to be played out. It was not an ordinary case. It was the confrontation Sister Wives viewers had been waiting for. At the center of the drama was Meri Brown. She had been the quiet, nearly invisible first wife for years. Viewers loved to describe her as lonely, relegated, and overlooked. But today, she was not the same. Her shoulders were squared, her chin set high, her eyes shining with resolve. For the first time, all eyes were on her, and she appeared to relish it. Across from her, at the defendant's table, was Robyn Brown, surrounded by her legal representatives. She had her usual tidy appearance, but the hint of a smile conveyed a glimmer of discomfort. Robyn, for all those years, had been labeled as the favorite wife, one whom Kody openly preferred to the exclusion of his others. She had been blamed for manipulating family dynamics, controlling Kody's decisions, and profiting financially from arrangements that kept the other wives scrambling. Fans had long speculated, but speculation was not the same as evidence. And that was why today mattered. The room falls silent. When the judge walked in, the small talk ceased immediately. Everyone stood up. There were no cameras present inside, but the theatrics weren't needed. Those who happened to see it would later recall it as being electric, unforgettable, and karma in real time. The judge didn't waste any time. This wasn't a matter of family therapy or relationship complaints. It was all about money. $480,000 at stake, over a series of emails that had come to light, supposedly documenting deceptions and manipulation behind closed doors. When the judge revealed the figure involved, gasps moved through the gallery. Almost $500,000. This wasn't coins in his pocket. This was economic clout, and in a family as broken as the Browns, it meant more than just figures on a ledger. Meri takes the stand. Meri's heels clicked as she strode towards the witness stand. For viewers, this was a far-out moment. The same woman who'd sat in confessionals weeping over being left behind was now dominating the room. She lifted her right hand, promised to tell the truth, and sat. The lawyer's question was straightforward. "Mrs. Brown, can you tell the court why you brought this case forward?" Her response was measured, but it had a gravity that filled the air. "For years I was excluded from making decisions that impacted me. I was informed that I belonged to this family, yet when money came into it, when fairness did, then I was not there. These emails corroborate it. They indicate that I was intentionally left out, misrepresented, and kept in the dark." Gasps once more. Heads nodded in Robyn's direction. Her lips were compressed tightly together, her eyes flashing in the direction of her lawyer. The evidence unfolds. Mountain ranges of paper were presented before the judge. Computer-printed copies of emails which had been recovered, authenticated and traced directly back to Robyn's accounts. Meri's lawyer carefully guided her through the content. One email allegedly showed Robyn discussing property transfers with Kody, noting that it's better if the others don't know. Another referenced moving funds to cover debts, but only Robyn's household was named. Over time, the transactions added up to a staggering $480,000. As each passage was read aloud, the atmosphere in the room changed. Initially, individuals were doubtful. Perhaps this was merely a misunderstanding, a miscommunication. However, the more that was read, the more difficult it became to ignore. Even the judge leaned forward, his forehead creasing ever deeper with each stanza. Robyn under pressure. When it was Robyn's turn to speak, the change in tone was evident. Her voice, normally smooth and precisely measured, cracked. She protested that the emails were being misinterpreted, that decisions were complicated, and that she had always acted out of the best interest of the family. But the damage was done. The very image she had created on Sister Wives, the image of the placid, misunderstood peacemaker, was falling apart before everyone's eyes. One moment was especially memorable. When directly asked by the judge why Meri hadn't been brought into these monetary conversations, Robyn paused. She looked over at her attorney, then at Kody sitting steadfastly behind her, and then mumbled, "It wasn't intentional." The resulting silence was thundering. Kody's lack of defense. Though Kody wasn't the one officially on trial, his presence loomed large. He sat behind Robyn, arms crossed, face unreadable. Occasionally he leaned toward her lawyers, whispering advice. Notably, he never looked at Meri. Not once. For viewers who had seen his favoritism play out on TV, this was not new. But in court, it was a glaring absence. It was as if he was quietly affirming what Meri had been telling us for years, that she had been excluded, left behind and treated like she was invisible. Fans react in real time. In front of the courthouse, fans congregated, brandishing signs that declared, "Justice for Meri." Robyn =sign lies. Karma has arrived. On social media, hashtags such as #TeamMeri and #Robyn exposed trending within hours. TikTok, Twitter and Facebook commentators live-streamed updates, analyzing every word that was uttered from inside. Some enthusiasts admitted that they'd quit watching Sister Wives since the favoritism became unbearable, but this court case had sucked them back in. One of the viral tweets summed up the attitude perfectly. Robyn spent years constructing her castle with deceit. Today Meri showed up with a wrecking ball. The judge's shocked facial expression, arguably the day's most vivid memory, did not come from Meri or Robyn, but from the judge himself. As Meri's lawyer laid out the timeline of financial decisions, tying each email to mounting evidence, the judge sat back in his chair, visibly stunned. He rubbed his temple, adjusted his glasses, and finally said, "This is highly irregular. I've rarely seen such a consistent pattern of exclusion documented so clearly." The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Those words carried weight. While the judge hadn't ruled yet, his shock alone was enough to send a message. Robyn was no longer in control of the narrative. Meri's moment of power for Meri. This was more than just a legal battle. It was her chance to reclaim her dignity. As she sat, head held high, she wasn't only fighting for money, she was fighting for recognition. Recognition that she had been wronged. Recognition that her years of silence had been misconstrued as weakness. In that courtroom, she wasn't the wife who had been forgotten. She wasn't the victim. She was the warrior. And the fans knew it. The symbolism of the showdown, aside from the legal aspects, this trial meant something larger. It meant the disintegration of the Brown family's highly constructed image. Robyn and Kody had been telling the world for years that they were making these decisions in the name of family harmony, that the rest were merely choosing to be confused. But here, in the unforgiving glare of the law, those words were unraveling. To the fans, this wasn't about $480,000. It was about justice. It was about seeing the tables turn after over a decade of frustration, and maybe most of all, It was about karma. The day ends but the war begins. When the judge dismissed for the day, the tension did not depart from the room. Everyone understood that this was only the start. There were more hearings, more evidence to sift through. The verdict was not final, but the change was unmistakable. For the first time in many years, Meri was not a supporting character in the Brown family drama. She was the lead. Reporters scrambled out to grab quotes. Meri stood steadily, providing little more than the truth speaks for itself. Robyn, flanked by her lawyers, sprinted into a black SUV, dodging the cameras and Kody. He followed in silence beside her, grim face, downcast eyes. It was the ideal photo to close out the day. The former mighty twosome, withdrawing in the shadow of suspicion, while the wife that they believed they had shut up, walked away more resilient than ever. The center of this courtroom fight was a chain of emails purportedly linked to close to $500,000. They were not gossipy chats. They spelled out financial maneuvers, debt shifting, and purported tactics to trap possessions in Robyn's name and give Meri and the other wives crumbs. For years there were whispers that Kody and Robyn were hiding assets, giving Robyn's family priority over everyone else. But until now, it was all rumor without evidence. Meri approached court with printouts, documents, and witnesses in her hand. The emails, she claimed, demonstrated Robyn intentionally kept her out of big financial decisions. It wasn't betrayal. It was fraud. As the judge read aloud excerpts of those emails, the room became tense. In one, Robyn seemed to be talking about moving funds quietly. In another, she mentioned property arrangements without consulting the other wives. The dollar figures mounted fast. $480,000 unexplained. This was not merely about money for Meri. It was about years of being manipulated, deceived, and treated as if she didn't exist. And in this court, she was finally empowered to strike back. The courtroom suspense had already enticed everyone. But when the pile of emails came forward, it reached a level of tension in a whole new dimension. Papers crunched, pens clicked anxiously, and whispers hummed around the gallery. This was not rumor. This was not speculation. This was proof. At the center of it all, $480,000. Nearly $500,000 tied up in transactions, property deals, and mysterious financial maneuvers that no one, at least according to Meri, was supposed to know about. And the shocking part, every trail seemed to lead back to Robyn. The judge lays the groundwork. The judge pushed forward, pushing his glasses up to the top of his nose as the clerk set the thick binder of printed emails on the bench. His tone was even, but even he couldn't suppress the interest. These documents, if genuine, are a significant financial case. The court will proceed cautiously. The phrase "if authentic" lingered in the air, but Meri's team was ready. They had cross-verified the emails with timestamps, accounts, and even external financial records. There would be no brushing this off as a mistake or misunderstanding. The first email, a whisper of secrecy. The first email read aloud seemed simple enough. Robyn writing to Kody about shifting funds between accounts. But one line sent a ripple through the room. It's likely better if Meri isn't aware of this until it is finalized. There were gasps. A hum moved through the gallery. Even the judge leaned forward. Why would Meri, a wife and co-equal member of the family, not be told? Meri sat quietly on the witness stand, her expression serene but her eyes ablaze with passion. Years of omission boiled down to a single sentence. The pattern emerges. But it didn't end there. Email after email was produced, each showing more of the same trend. Property negotiations in which Robyn and Kody were the only names copied. Debt to be paid back arranged without telling the other wives about it. Accounts transferred, assets redirected, and excuses articulated in coded language that only made sense when they were put together. The dollar figures snowballed. Initially it was thousands, then tens of thousands, until eventually the math could not be avoided. Almost $480,000 in choices and transactions kept from Meri altogether. By this point, the courtroom was less a family conflict and more the revelation of a scandal. Meri breaks her silence. As the attorney reviewed the evidence, Meri finally broke her silence. Her voice was firm, but each word contained a lifetime of hurt. I was informed that we were a family. I was informed that we shared everything. But these emails reveal the truth. I wasn't included because I wasn't wanted. I wasn't trusted. And I wasn't respected. It wasn't about the money. It was about betrayal. For viewers who had seen her go through constant rejection on Sister Wives, this was moment of vindication. Robyn's defense begins. As it was Robyn's turn. Her voice was defensive but measured. She claimed that the emails were being misinterpreted. She explained the family's finances were complicated and some decisions had to be rushed. She maintained she never intended to leave Meri out, that it was all a misunderstanding. But as she testified, her words rang empty. Because every time she offered an excuse, there was another email refuting it. Another date. Another dollar figure. Another example of secrecy. Even the judge leaned in on her herself. If these choices were harmless, why did you personally write to leave another family member in the dark? Robyn's face reddened. She stumbled. She glanced at Kody seated stiff-faced beside her. But no salvation was forthcoming. The fans long suspected truth. For years, Sister Wives viewers had theorized that Robyn was the puppet master behind Kody's choices. They viewed her as the favorite wife, the one who always seemed to gain at the expense of the others. Now with these emails, viewers felt vindicated. On Twitter, courthouse updates brightened timelines. Hashtags such as #emailgate and #480k scandal started trending. One viral TikTok joked, "So all those times Robyn declared she was the victim, turns out she was the mastermind." Another Twitter fan said, "This isn't about $480,000. It's about 10 plus years of favoritism, finally catching up to her." The judge's shock intensifies. As additional emails were read aloud, the judge became increasingly agitated. He questioned. He took notes. He leaned forward, studying the documents. At one stage, after particularly damning wording about protection of assets prior to Meri becoming aware, he stopped, put down the sheet of paper and stared straight at Robyn. This letter implies intentional exclusion. That is extremely unusual for what is purported to be a cooperative family setup. That single remark was huge. It meant the judge wasn't glancing over. He was recognizing the gravity of what he was reading. Kody's silent role. While Kody wasn't on trial, his presence hung over the whole situation. His name was mentioned in almost every email. His alignment with Robyn was clear. His bias unquestionable. But inside the courtroom, he remained quiet for the most part. Arms crossed, scowling, muttering under his breath to Robyn's lawyer. To Meri's supporters, this silence spoke volumes. It was proof of his complicity. Proof that the man who once preached about equality in a plural marriage had allowed secrecy and favoritism to tear his family apart. Meri's moment of strength. When asked how these emails made her feel, Meri didn't hold back. "I spent years wondering if I was enough. Wondering if I deserved to be included. But this proves it wasn't me. It was them. They lied. They schemed. And they tried to erase me." Her statement wasn't just evidence. It was a declaration. Sister Wives watchers following online provided varying descriptions of it as one of the strongest moments in Sister Wives history. One fan posted, "I'm crying. Meri's strength today is everything. She's finally speaking her truth." The symbolism of $480,000. To outsiders, $480,000 is a lot of money. But in the Sister Wives saga, it represented something much deeper. It was the value of secrecy. The cost of favoritism. The price of silence. For Meri, all the years of being excluded in one lump sum. For Robyn, her perfectly constructed persona being undone in front of us all at once. And for the judge, a warning sign that this wasn't merely a case of miscommunication, it was institutional exclusion. The gallery responds. Everyone in that courtroom knew they were watching something historic, not only for reality television, but for the Brown family drama. Some gasped. Some shook their heads. A few even smiled to themselves when Robyn attempted to spin an clearly incriminating line as innocent wording. Before the final email was read, the gallery was alive with tension. Folks whispered words of fraud, betrayal and karma. The bombshell ends. But the story continues. When the judge did eventually call a recess, the air was still charged. Robyn appeared shaken, speaking in hushed tones to her attorneys. Kody refused to make eye contact with Meri at all. And Meri, she sat upright. shoulders back, as if a burden had been removed. It was just one step in a longer journey. But what a landmark one. She hadn't only introduced evidence, she had introduced truth. Outside, journalists scurried to provide updates. Internet fans called victory for Meri. And despite the legal fight not being concluded, the court of public opinion had already picked its victor. The legacy of the emails, the $480,000 email scandal, will be remembered as one of the biggest surprises in Sister Wives history. It revealed fissures that fans long suspected, but could never document. It presented Meri not as the weak, forgotten wife, but as the warrior who uncovered the truth. And it presented Robyn not as the victim she had been portraying, but as a person who at the very least had a great deal of explaining to do. The bomb had been dropped. The empire was trembling, and viewers were watching every second of it happen. Viewers at home watching the proceedings in the courthouse hardly recognized the woman they were seeing. This wasn't the reserved, quiet Meri who spent years pleading for crumbs of attention from Kody. This was a different woman, confident, fierce, and fearless. She didn't shake in her boots when she accused Robyn. She didn't cower when Kody's attorneys attempted to intimidate her, rather she doubled up, referencing evidence, referencing dates, and insisting on accountability. For Meri, it was about more than the money. This was her chance to prove that she had been right all along. That Robyn wasn't the innocent victim she portrayed on Sister Wives, and fans loved every second. Social media lit up with comments, "This is the Meri we've been waiting for. Robyn's mask is slipping. Finally, karma is real." And it just came for Robyn. The courtroom was quiet, but quiet it wasn't. It was electric. Everyone present knew it. Something huge was taking place. It was no longer about the $480,000 worth of contested emails any longer. It was about the woman at the epicenter of it all. For more than a decade, Sister Wives viewers had seen Meri Brown slip into the shadows. She was the first wife, somehow always the most overlooked. Her narrative on the show tended to be centered around sadness, isolation, and rejection. People sympathized with her, even judged her for remaining in an unhappy marriage. All of that shifted in that courtroom though. The forgotten wife no more. When Meri took her first steps out to the witness stand, there were some in the gallery who weren't anticipating a lot. Years they had known her as reserved, timid, overshadowed by stronger personalities such as Christine's independence, Janelle's pragmatic nature, and Robyn's manipulation. However, the minute she began to speak, it became obvious that this was not the same Meri. Her tone was firm. Her language was biting. She wasn't crying or begging. She wasn't asking for the family to accept her, or Kody to love her. She was demanding answers. This wasn't weakness any longer. This was strength. Years of pain, years of silence. To grasp the intensity of this moment, you must recall where Meri had been. On Sister Wives, fans watched her hold on to her marriage for dear life, even when Kody clearly and sometimes brutally explained that their relationship was over. Fans will never forget the moment when he sat her down and informed her that he had no romantic feelings for her, and she sat there in pieces, yet remained faithful. Then came the catfishing scandal. Meri's attempt to find affection outside the marriage backfired, and instead of support, she faced judgment and mockery. That incident cemented her image as the sad, isolated wife who just couldn't catch a break. For years thereafter, she felt like a ghost. Whenever family gatherings were aired, she was missing, ignored, or brushed aside. Fans would beseech her on social media. "Meri, leave, you deserve better." But she didn't leave. Not yet. The shift begins over the past few seasons. Viewers began to see something quietly. Meri wasn't pleading anymore. She wasn't pursuing Kody. She was working on her bed and breakfast instead, hanging out with friends, and quietly building her independence. Nobody anticipated what happened in that courtroom though. When the $480,000 email scandal erupted, everyone expected Christine or Janelle to take on Robyn. But it was Meri, the quiet woman once, whom picked the fight. And she fought with a ferocity that stunned everyone. Taking charge of the courtroom, Meri told her story when she gave her testimony, rather than simply reciting facts. She told how she was left out of decisions in the family, how she was brushed off when she questioned things, and how she finally found the emails that vindicated her worst suspicions. What made her words so potent wasn't solely the proof, but the belief that lay beneath them. At one point, she pointed straight at the judge and stated, "I believed in this family, I believed in justice, and for years I thought perhaps I wasn't good enough. But the reality is, I was deceived. I was excluded, and I deserve better." The courtroom went still. Even Robyn looked shaken, fidgeting in her seat. Fans witnessed the metamorphosis. Outside the courthouse, fans waiting for updates were charged. This was the Meri they had always longed to see, not the broken female waiting for crumbs of love, but the warrior calling for justice. One fan posted on Twitter, "Meri isn't just surviving anymore, she's thriving. This is her moment." Another posted, "For years we begged her to stand up for herself. She just did. And it's glorious." TikTok edits began trending with clips of old Meri, sad, overlooked, juxtaposed with her fiery courtroom statements. The message was clear. Meri had transformed. Robyn loses her power. Part of what made Meri's transformation so powerful was how it contrasted with Robyn's unraveling. Robyn had always been the calm, emotional, and family-devoted one. But in court, as Meri built her case, Robyn floundered. She stumbled over her words. She leaned too much on her attorneys. Her normal hold on Kody and the story was failing. And it was failing because of Meri. For once, it wasn't Robyn running the show. It was Meri. The judge notices. Even the judge seemed taken aback by Meri's transformation. Judges are trained to remain neutral. But his expressions were telling. He leaned forward more when she spoke. He asked her clarifying questions. He nodded when she explained how the exclusion made her feel invisible. By the time she finished, it wasn't just about the evidence anymore. It was about her courage. One reporter outside later said, "The judge wasn't just listening to her testimony, he was witnessing her transformation." Meri's inner strength. What made this moment resonate so deeply was that it wasn't just about a court case. It was about years of resilience finally paying off. Meri had suffered heartbreak, humiliation, and betrayal on national TV. She had been ridiculed by fans, set aside by her husband, and overshadowed by her sister wives. But rather than letting it destroy her utterly, she had quietly rebuilt herself. And here in this courtroom, all that resilience came pouring out. She wasn't angry on purpose. She wasn't seeking revenge. She was unflappable, calculating, and unbreakable. The kind of strength that is not about avoiding hurt, but enduring it. The symbolism for women everywhere fans didn't simply view this as a victory for Meri on a personal level. They viewed it as symbolic. How many women have stayed in relationships where they were undervalued? How many have been excluded from decisions, lied to, or made to feel invisible? Meri's transformation became a story of hope, a message that it's never too late to find your voice. Comments poured in. "I stayed too long in a bad relationship. Watching Meri today makes me feel stronger." This isn't just a court case. It's an inspiration. The turning point, at the end of the session, it was apparent the old Meri was no more. The meek woman who had once pleaded with Kody for attention had given way to someone bold, fearless, and unapologetic. Someone who could enter a courtroom, face her greatest adversary, and not bat an eye. This wasn't a change, it was a resurrection. Christine and Janelle's shadow. Although they weren't present in the courtroom that day, Christine and Janelle were there in spirit. Fans wondered ceaselessly about how they could have felt sitting at home. Christine, who had moved on from Kody and established a new life, must have been proud. Janelle, who had long intimated financial favoritism, must have felt vindicated. But for Meri, it was different. She hadn't left. She had stayed. She had endured. And now she was the one delivering the final blow. What this means for the future Meri's transformation isn't just a moment, it's a turning point. In the court of law, it strengthens her case. In the court of public opinion, it elevates her from victim to victor. And in her personal life, it changes everything. Because after you have found your voice, after you've found your strength, never again will you return to silence. The woman who rose from the ashes, Meri, didn't rub it in after the session ended. She didn't smirk. She just stood tall, collected her belongings, and walked out calmly. And that's what made her redemption so compelling. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't about bringing someone else down. It was about standing in her truth at last. Meri Brown, the forgotten wife, had become the woman nobody could ignore. And for viewers, it was not just justice. It was poetry. Maybe most surprising of all that day was the judge's reaction. Initially, the case appeared to be a dysfunctional family feud, just more sister-wives drama. But then Meri put forward her evidence, and the judge leaned forward, eyes wide, patently shocked. When Robyn was called upon to reply, her response was evasive, contradictory at times. The judge actually interrupted to ask, why were these financial decisions not disclosed to all parties involved? Robyn was silent. Her glossy image of being the peacemaker fell apart. Standing in the courtroom, she appeared trapped, defensive and exposed. And although no ultimate decision was made that day, one thing was certain: Robyn's credibility was in shambles. Papers rustling was the only thing that filled the silence in the courtroom. The judge rocked back in his chair, his hand against his chin, his eyes locked on Meri as though he were attempting to make sense of everything she had just presented. For a man who had probably witnessed hundreds of cases, his face told it all. This was not typical. This was exceptional. The judge's silent shock. Judges learned to be objective, nearly expressionless. But even objectivity has its boundaries. When Meri produced the emails, evidence of $480,000 worth of manipulation and deceit, the judge raised an eyebrow slightly. To everyone else, it may have appeared to be just a small twitch of emotion, but to those who had closely observed him during the trial, it was gigantic. This was a man who had probably presided over cases of fraud, acrimonious divorces, company disputes. But there was something different about this case. Perhaps it was the fact that the deceptions were not mere deceptions about money. They were deceptions about family, betrayal, and shattering trust in a national forum. Mrs. Brown, he at last spoke after a lengthy hesitation, his voice firm but more biting than ever. Are you stating in this court that these communications were intentionally kept from you, yet they were utilized to transfer financial authority to Mrs. Robyn Brown and Mr. Kody Brown? Meri nodded resolutely. Yes, Your Honor, and I have the documents to back me up. The gallery gasp was heard. The courtroom atmosphere. Courtrooms are not typically drama, but in this one it was as if a real drama were playing. Kody fidgeted awkwardly in his chair, bravado shattering. Robyn's face had paled, her eyes flying nervously toward her lawyers, and Meri sat upright, hands clasped in front of her, exuding calm strength. The judge's eyes swept the room, resting on Kody and Robyn. His voice grew lower, more somber. These are serious charges, and if they prove true, this court will not take them lightly. It was then fans following the live feed online started buzzing. The judge was shocked. Reporters scrambled to document the moment outside the courthouse. Journalists swarmed around computers and phones, transmitting live tweets and breaking news alerts. Judge clearly amazed as Meri Brown brings $480K email proof in sister wives trial. One read. A second reporter tweeted, I've reported court for 20 years. Not often have I witnessed a judge react so strongly to evidence. This isn't merely a family feud anymore. It's a bombshell case. The updates spread like wildfire. Within minutes, hashtags like #MeriWins, #Robyn exposed, #Karma for Kody began trending. Fans call it karma. Fans had long been waiting for a moment like this. For years they'd watched Kody and Robyn consolidate power while Meri was left in the shadows. They had witnessed Meri's heartbreak, her catfishing scandal, and her eventual loneliness. Now seeing her stand tall in court while Robyn fumbled was nothing short of poetic justice. On Twitter, a fan posted, Robyn's tears won't be enough in front of a judge. Karma is here and her name is Meri. Another commented, the look on the judge's face was everything. He knows Meri is not just making up a story, she's revealing the truth. Memes filled social media. One pictured Robyn weeping in previous seasons with the caption, "These tears won't save you now." Another featured Meri, striding into court with blazing text, Meri Brown from ignored wife to courtroom queen. The judge pushes back. As the hearing went on, The judge pushed Robyn and her attorneys for explanations. Mrs. Brown, he asserted, these emails directly mention you. Can you tell me why they weren't revealed to Meri? Robyn faltered. Her attorney attempted to step in, but the judge raised a hand. No, I want to hear from her myself. The air was charged. Robyn's voice quivered as she protested misunderstanding, but the judge's cold stare told him he wasn't buying it. Witnesses murmured to each other. Others shifted forward in their seats. Everyone sensed it. Robyn's carefully maintained illusion was falling apart. Public reaction. Outside the courthouse, crowds of fans waited outside with handmade signs. Justice for Meri. Robyn lied, Meri tried. $480K = betrayal. News crews captured reactions as people cheered when updates were announced. Some had followed Sister Wives for over a decade, and they said it felt surreal to see the drama spill into real life with such high stakes. One longtime fan told a reporter, "We always said Robyn was manipulating the finances. To see Meri finally prove it, it's vindication for all of us who believed her." Another said tearfully, "Meri was always the one left behind, the one forgotten. Today she's the one standing tall. It's inspiring." The humanity of the judge revealed near the conclusion of the session. The judge leaned forward once more, his tone gentler this time. "Mrs. Brown," he told her, "I want to praise you. It is not simple to speak out, particularly in a case involving family members. Your bravery is recorded." That single line rippled through the courtroom like a shockwave. Judges rarely give personal acknowledgments, but this one had, and the message was clear. He respected Meri's bravery. Meri's eyes glistened, but she didn't break. She gave a small nod, as if to say, "Thank you, but I'm not done yet." The internet explodes. The judge's words were immediately quoted online. Within minutes, screenshots of courtroom sketches and paraphrased updates went viral. Reddit comment threads filled with such comments as, "When a judge praises you for courage, you've already won in the court of public opinion." Robyn thought she was smarter than anyone. She didn't bank on Meri having found her voice. TikTok influencers spliced together bits of older Sister Wives footage with courtroom news, making the saga into popular mini-documentaries. One hit video concluded with big letters flashing on screen. "The judge is stunned, and so are we." Why this moment mattered for viewers. The judge's surprise meant more than legal significance. It represented validation. For years, the suspicion had existed of favoritism, manipulation, and backroom financial machinations. They saw Kody giving time and money to Robyn and ignoring the others. They saw Meri, Christine, and Janelle set aside. Now that the judge had reacted so harshly, it was as if the system itself was declaring, "You were right all along." The Brown family fractures. Within the courthouse, the impact on the Browns was unmistakable. Kody leaned back in his chair, furiously agitated. His fiery confidence had lost its sparkle. Robyn refused to meet anyone's eye. And though Christine and Janelle weren't sitting in the room, supporters knew they were observing with keen interest. Social media exploded with gossip. How are Christine and Janelle responding to this bombshell? Are they secretly supporting Meri? The judge's final warning. As the gavel struck to adjourn the session, the judge departed with one chilling remark. "This court will not tolerate deception. If these allegations hold, serious consequences will follow." The room erupted into chaos. Some gasped, others whispered indignantly, and others smiled knowingly. The warning was not just to Robyn and Kody. It was a signal to anyone watching that the case was going to get much bigger. The karma moment for their fans. It was the ultimate karma moment. Robyn and Kody, who had been playing so long as if they were above the law, were now in the spotlight of both the legal system and the public. And the woman they had pushed away the most, Meri, was sitting with all the power. Twitter encapsulated it best. "The judge is shocked, the fans are vindicated, and Meri is finally free. This is karma in real time." The aftermath outside. When Meri finally emerged from the courthouse, camera bulbs flashed. Reporters cried out questions, but she did not answer. Instead, she flashed a small, smug smile. The type of smile that conveyed, "I don't have to explain. The truth takes care of itself." Fans cheered wildly. Some even chanted her name. "Meri, Meri, Meri." It was the type of welcome reserved for stars. But at that moment, Meri was not merely a reality television personality. She was an icon of justice, strength, and truth. A turning point. By the end of the day, this was certain: the judge's astonishment and the public's response had turned the tide entirely. Meri wasn't just winning her lawsuit, she was winning back her story. And for the first time in years, the world wasn't laughing at her, pitying her, or judging her. They were standing with her. As much as the law was slow, public opinion courted a verdict immediately. Fans were merciless. For more than a decade, fans blamed Robyn for controlling Kody, ruining his relationships with the other wives, and dominating the family's resources. This courtroom bombshell seemed like evidence. Comments poured in. Robyn established her kingdom of deceit. Now it's collapsing. Meri deserves every dollar and more. This is karma for everything that Robyn has done. Even ex-viewers of the show, who had lost interest when the family became too fragmented, tuned back in to watch the drama play out. It was more than a trial. It was the symbolic revenge Sister Wives fans had been waiting for. When the gavel came down, and the judge adjourned the court for the day, the air within the courtroom was heavy, thick with the weight of all that had just transpired. This wasn't another hearing. It was a milestone, the type of moment that would be remembered and discussed by fans and legal professionals for years to come. The repercussions were only just starting. Meri walks out, a winner. As Meri walked out of the courthouse, she did not hurry, she did not cower. She walked with deliberate strides, shoulders squared, eyes ahead. She did not have to say anything. The silence did it for her. The shouting outside, the flashes of cameras, the yelling of her name. It was vindication she had waited so long for. For so long, she had been the invisible wife, the forgotten first partner. But now, she was the headline. She was the story, and she knew it. Later that evening, when Meri finally spoke out on social media, her words were brief but potent. The truth always comes to light. Thank you to those who believed in me. Within minutes, her posting was garnering hundreds of thousands of likes and comments. Fans hailed her as a hero, an inspiration, and most notably, the woman who finally held the Brown family accountable. Robyn's empire crumbles. For Robyn, the backlash was vicious. Her performance in court had been a disaster. The previously put together, weeping wife who had been able to get Kody with one tear, now appeared to be disorganized, on the defensive, and unbelievable. The pointed questions from the judge, and overt frustration had shattered the highly polished image she had maintained for more than a decade. Headlines were brutal. Robyn Brown exposed, $480K scandal rocks, Sister Wives family, from favorite to fraud. Robyn faces backlash. After court bombshell, fans say karma gets Robyn as judge asks about liars. Social media was no more sympathetic. Fans shared side-by-side memes. Robyn in tears on the show, versus Robyn stumbling in court. Caption: the tears don't work here. The blow to her reputation was devastating. For years she'd been beset by accusations that she was manipulative, that she played the victim, that she schemed to amass power and money within her piece of the family. Now, with word of secret emails costing almost $500,000, fans felt vindicated. The hashtag Robyn lied started trending, and it stuck. Kody's fall from power. If Robyn's reputation was disintegrating, Kody's was deteriorating even more quickly. He had always been larger than life, the boisterous, assertive patriarch, who would not be denied. But in court, without his bluster, he seemed small. His efforts to defend himself were revealed as bluster. His fidgeting in his seat, his remaining silent when the judge challenged him, and his refusal to look Meri in the eye created a damning impression. For years Kody had played favorites, spent money on Robyn's household, and ignored the complaints of his other wives. The financial figures now connected those decisions to cold, hard facts. Online fans proclaimed, Kody's empire is over. He constructed everything on deceit, and now the truth is destroying it. Even old friends of Kody could not come to his defense. The backlash wasn't so much about this case. It was about years of hubris, finally coming back to haunt him. Christine and Janelle sit tight. Though Christine and Janelle weren't actually in the courtroom, their shadows hung heavy over the whole drama. Christine, who had left Kody and established a new life, likely sat tight watching the news. She had long complained of favoritism by Kody and Robyn and unfair money management. Now Meri had given the evidence she never had. Fans speculated endlessly on how Christine might respond. Would she post a cryptic Instagram story? Would she go live to celebrate Meri's victory? The possibility alone fueled online conversations. And Janelle, ever the practical one, had often raised concerns about money during the show. Now, those concerns had been validated. Viewers predicted she might consider legal action of her own, especially if the financial manipulation stretched into her household as well. Together, Christine and Janelle were painted as the quiet witnesses to Meri's triumph. The three women, once fractured, were now united by one truth. Robyn and Kody's empire was collapsing. The judge's warning echoes. The judge's final words before adjourning, "This court will not tolerate deception," lingered in everyone's mind. It wasn't just a warning, it was a promise. Legal experts moved in with quick judgments, stating that if the claims were entirely confirmed, Robyn and Kody might be slapped with heavy financial losses, potential restitution, and even more investigations into business and tax policies. This wasn't the end. It was the start of a much more significant storm. Fans react around the world. The scandal wasn't limited to the courtroom or even to Sister Wives devotees. This was a big story in the entertainment industry. News anchors argued over the cultural significance of a polygamous family's financial scandal being so publicly played out. On social media, the response was incendiary. TikTok influencers spliced courtroom news with soundtracks. YouTube commentators posted hour-long deconstructions of the emails and what they implied. Twitter X was full of celebratory tweets calling Meri the comeback queen. One popular tweet explained it thus: "Robyn stole the spotlight. Christine stole her freedom. Janelle stole her peace. And Meri? Meri stole the show. The Brown legacy in shambles." So what did this do to the Sister Wives legacy? For years the show had sold itself as a tale of love, religion, and the perseverance of plural marriage in contemporary America. But now, with legal battles, accusations of financial deception, and family fractures on display, the image had shattered. Viewers debated whether the show could even continue. Could TLC justify another season after such damning revelations? Or would this courtroom saga become the new storyline? Reality television bleeding into real-life legal drama. Either way, the Browns would never be the same. Meri's next chapter. To Meri, the aftermath wasn't about court win, it was about personal transformation. She'd been the overlooked first wife to the star of one of reality television's most sensational family controversies. She was now the focal point in one of reality TV's most buzzed-about family scandals. She was transformed. Teens now wondered, will she pen a memoir about it? Will she have her own spin-off show? Would she finally shed the Sister Wives moniker for once, and fully be her own person? Whatever the decision, one thing was clear: she was no longer living in anyone's shadow. Robyn and Kody pull back. Meanwhile, Robyn and Kody were set to pull back. Sources indicated they were steering clear of the media, not making public comments, and trusting mostly in their attorneys. Their silence, however, only served to fuel speculation. Were they in settlement talks? Were they setting the stage for additional lawsuits? Or were they simply speechless at the sheer magnitude of what had just transpired? Either way, the public wasn't gracious, and the image they had constructed over years had fallen apart irreparably. The family at a crossroads. The Browns, once introduced as a unified if complicated family, were now a fractured empire. Christine had her independence. Janelle had her independence. Meri had her justice. Kody and Robyn, they had a heap of legal woes and a reputation in tatters. For viewers, the imagery was potent. The wives who had been discarded had fought back, while the so-called power couple had crashed down. A legacy of karma. Ultimately, the blowback from this case wasn't about $480,000 or secret emails. It was about karma. Robyn and Kody had constructed their dynasty on favoritism, secrets, and manipulation. And they appeared to be above the law for years. But karma, as it is said, fans used to exclaim, has impeccable timing. And its name, in this instance, was Meri. What comes next? The world waits now. The court will adjourn again. The judge will go on to review the evidence. Additional revelations could emerge. But one thing is certain already. The Brown family will never be the same again. The cracks are too deep. The trust is broken. The legacy has been destroyed. For Meri, Christine, and Janelle, it is perhaps the start of a new life. A life of independence, strength, and liberation. For Robyn and Kody, it could be the end of all that they believed they had in their power. And for the fans? It's the ultimate payoff after years of watching heartbreak, manipulation, and favoritism. The fallout is here, and the world is watching what comes next. So what then? If Meri succeeds, the implications could be huge. The $480,000 in question may be diverted. And Robyn and Kody might come under further financial scrutiny. Tax questions, questions of property ownership, and potential debts could spin into even larger legal battles. For Kody, whose great family dream has already fallen apart, this might be the coup de grace. His reputation is ruined. His marriages are dead, and now his money is under attack. For Robyn, the damage might be even worse. She has staked her identity on being the loyal, misunderstood wife. But if the court rules against her, that image may never recover. And for Meri, this is her moment of transformation. No more background player, no more victim. She has come to center stage, a woman who fought and survived. The gavel had fallen. The judge's words still rang in the heads of all those present in the courtroom. But the tale wasn't ending there. It was only ruffling outward, shaking all in its wake. This was the aftershock. And for the Browns, it was as strong as the first earthquake. The media frenzy. The very next morning, headlines blew up on every major outlet. Meri Brown drops bombshell emails. $480K lies exposed in court. Judge stuns sister wives. Stars Kody and Robyn. With harsh warning from forgotten wife to hero. How Meri turned the tables. News anchors discussed the case in primetime programs. Talk shows featured experts discussing the fallout. Late-night comedians couldn't even help but mock Kody and Robyn's breakdown, becoming monologue punchlines seen by millions. A reality show plot point on TLC once. This was now head of the nation news. The TLC dilemma behind the doors of TLC headquarters. The executives were in a panic. Sister Wives had been a rating staple for years, bringing in viewers who couldn't help but watch as the drama unfolded. But suddenly the drama had jumped off the television and into the courtroom. Producers were left with an impossible question. Should they cut ties with the Browns and save the network's reputation, or should they lean into the chaos, turning the legal saga into the next explosive season? Some insiders whispered that TLC had already started drafting storyboards for a spin-off focused solely on Meri, Christine, and Janelle, the three wives who had broken free. Others claimed advertisers were hesitant, worried about associating with scandal. Either way, the TLC-Brown relationship would never be the same. Meri's new role for Meri. The aftershock was overwhelming, but in the best sense. She wasn't accustomed to being the focus. For more than a decade she'd played the lonely, relegated wife. But now, she was the heroine of the story. Her inbox flooded with interview requests, podcast invitations, and book deal offers. Motivational speaking agencies reached out, offering her spots at women's empowerment conferences. Fans messaged her endlessly. "You inspire me, you gave me courage to leave my toxic marriage. You're proof that it's never too late to fight for yourself." For the first time in years, Meri wasn't living in Kody's shadow. She was living in her own light. But with the attention came new stress. How would she utilize it? Robyn retreats into silence. As Meri flourished, Robyn imploded. Once the refined, weeping wife who could turn any scenario into tears of sympathy, Robyn was now detested by the public. On social media, fans ridiculed her sob fits. Memes of her weeping face went round and round, complete with such captions as "Your Honor, my tears will clarify everything." The humiliation never ceased. Tabloids burrowed through her history, rehearsing each of her steps since marrying into the family. Even impartial viewers conceded their faith in her had vanished. Behind the scenes inside her home, insiders reported Robyn was isolating. She rejected interviews, shunned cameras, and relied solely on Kody. But Kody himself was breaking down. and Robyn's previously untouchable empire of influence was rapidly disintegrating. Kody's identity crisis. It was intimate for Kody. He had constructed his whole life on control. Control of his wives, of his family, of his story. On Sister Wives he had established himself as the head of the family, the man to whom obedience was due. Now he was the man who had lost everything. Skepticism from the judge hurt him more than he let on. The shouting outside the courthouse, "Justice for Meri," cycled in his head, and the online reaction. It was brutal. Once they argued over whether they approved of his decisions. Today they weren't arguing anymore. They concurred in their disrespect. The patriarch who previously swaggered with arrogance was now a man vulnerable, a man pinned down, a man out of control. Christine's vindication. Christine, observing from the sidelines, couldn't help but feel vindicated. For years she had been called jealous, emotional, even irrational when she accused favoritism. Kody dismissed her, viewers doubted her, and Robyn smiled sweetly as if she were out of it all. But now, Christine had been vindicated. She didn't have to gloat, she didn't have to rub it in. All she had to do was be her best self, posting photos with her new husband, globe-trotting, laughing, exuding joy. Her bliss was evidence that leaving Kody had been the best thing she ever did. And seeing Meri finally stand up in court, icing on the cake. Janelle's math practical. Janelle observed the aftermath like a tactician. She had always been frugal with money, always questioning how the money was spent in the Brown home. Now, with the evidence of Meri out in the open, Janelle had a clear way. Insiders said she was speaking to lawyers of her own, deliberating on whether to get involved in the case or file independent action. Fans surmised that if Janelle came forth with her own documents, the whole financial matrix Robyn and Kody constructed could be unraveled entirely. Janelle wasn't sitting idly by. She was strategizing. The fans' takeover. The fallout extended beyond the family. The fans had joined the narrative. On Reddit, threads with thousands of posts analyzed every shred of evidence. TikTok influencers created viral content dramatizing courtroom scenes, with reenactments and sound effects. Twitter X made Meri a trending topic every day. Some of the fans likened the drama to traditional dramas. This isn't Sister Wives anymore. This is Game of Thrones. Polygamist edition. Others interpreted it as empowerment. Meri stood up not just for herself, but for every woman who's ever been silenced. The fandom wasn't just watching. They were making the story go viral, thrusting it into the mainstream of culture. Cultural shockwaves. Aside from entertainment, the case served to touch off larger discussions. Talk shows featured relationship experts discussing polygamy, favoritism. Financial pundits offered opinions on how common assets might be manipulated within plural unions. Women's groups applauded Meri for bringing financial abuse to light and providing an example for others to follow who were in abusive relationships. It was no longer just a Sister Wives scandal. It was a case study, a cultural reckoning. What happens to Sister Wives? The question burning in everyone's mind was, could the show make it? Others contended that the original message of the show, family harmony, was irretrievable. Still others claimed the saga promised a second season. After all, what producer of reality television would not want to film this courtroom tumult on television? Rumors circulated that TLC could shift a spin-off with Meri, Christine, and Janelle, sharing their lives as single women, unencumbered by Kody. Fans went wild at the prospect. "We don't want Sister Wives anymore," one posted. "We want ex-wives." The Brown family name at its center was the family name Brown. Once it symbolized a unique if controversial attempt at plural marriage in the modern world. Now it symbolized scandal, betrayal, and collapse. Some predicted the family brand would fade, that Kody and Robyn would retreat into obscurity. Others believed Meri's rise, Christine's happiness, and Janelle's strength would redefine the name entirely. But one truth was undeniable. The name would never mean what it once did. The unanswered questions. As the aftershock wore off, the world was left wondering, would the court seek full legal action on Robyn and Kody? Would Janelle file on her own? Would TLC cash in on the drama or walk away completely? Would Meri claim her new platform and step fully into independence? These unasked questions kept fans on the edge, refreshing pages, waiting for the next headline, the next turn. The bigger picture ultimately, Session 6 wasn't merely about fallout, it was about transformation. The Browns weren't merely a family anymore, they were a warning. A reality TV dynasty founded on secrets and favoritism that had ultimately been revealed in the harsh light of truth. And at the center of it all stood Meri, no longer the neglected wife, no longer the woman pleading for love, but the woman who destroyed the empire.